Hey guys, Dark Humility here with yet another character showcase on my hardcore solo self-found journey for Season 11, Project Diablo 2. We have here a sorceress, believe it or not. And I feel like this character showcase might be more important than others because you can see how it's possible to both make a sorceress that is both capable of mapping but also surviving on hardcore even without trading. As I am very known for saying on my stream, the thing about Sorceress, or rather the problem with Sorceress, is that she often has a U-shape power curve where she starts out one of the strongest characters in the game for Lord of Destruction content, but when you transition into mapping, or when you attempt to, it requires a lot of gear, so she's probably one of the worst characters for transitioning into those tier 1 maps, hence the bottom of the power curve. And then once you become rich and you get super powerful gear, she becomes arguably one of the strongest classes in the game with some of the most powerful options for builds, period, as tested for my tier list on closed beta with constant examples. However, of course, when it comes to the sorceress, finding gear on solo self-found without trading can be fairly challenging, and making a character that can map at least decently well could be a bit challenging. This is not the most powerful sorceress that is possible. If you want to see what is really possible, you could check out my closed beta tests on sorceress. But another thing that's interesting is that this is an actual realistic build that doesn't overuse potions, doesn't have issues with damage or otherwise, and it doesn't even have the craziest gear. A lot of gear is very basic and bare bones, as I had to rely purely on what I have found. So with that all being said, we're going to get into the stats, these skills, the Mercenary, the gear, and then we're going to do some map demos all the way through tier 3 maps. And hopefully you guys can enjoy and appreciate the power of a solo self-found hardcore sorceress, which is not easy to make work. But yeah, let's get into it. I really like Charged Bolt this season. If you guys don't know, it pierces, as you may have seen my closed beta video where I play a very optimized, at least damage version of it, and it crushes absolutely everything. This version, though, is optimized, of course, for hardcore, and there's other considerations, and obviously the fact that we can't just use any piece of gear. As a matter of fact, I haven't even found a Ming Song's lesson, so I didn't even have a chance to corrupt one, so there's no godly corruptions of Ming Songs or anything up in here. But all that being said, though, let's dive into what we have created here. So we have enough strength to wear our gear, specifically our upgraded Viper Magi. We have Dex is not required for this build whatsoever, and then literally you dump the rest of your points into energy. This is an approach which I'd say is probably the most common approach, particularly on a ranged sorceress, where you mostly rely on energy shield. You could also make a life-oriented one, as I've done in previous seasons, using chromatic ire or obsession, where you get maximum life on a lot of pieces of gear. And maximum life sorceresses are key for defeating like bosses like Rathma, things like that. But for the most part, energy shield's very strong on PD2 because they got rid of all the energy shield related bugs. Also, you only have to max out energy shield itself and put hard points into it to get both the benefits of high energy shield and what used to be the telekinesis synergy, which would reduce the damage taken going to your mana per level. Energy shield, of course, being the skill that directs damage to your mana instead of your life by percentage of the damage that you're taking. Energy shield is also way more effective against physical damage than elemental damage to a high degree, which is something else to keep in mind. Elemental damage will just drain your mana faster. You can see this is actually very strange for a hardcore build, but if you understand energy shield, it makes sense. So elemental resistances and damage reduction percents do not apply to mana. None of that applies to mana whatsoever. It only applies to your health. And since we have 89% damage directing to her mana and only 11% to her HP, the only thing Res is doing for us is making sure not too much of her damage is going to her life and that her life isn't draining because we have so low res that we're basically getting wrecked. So having like decently or just at least positive resistances is recommended. So that if you hit 90% ES, which is usually the goal, we would need one more level for that. But if you hit 90% ES, you mainly just don't want the remaining 10% of damage to be so high that your life is also draining. Your life is mainly just a small backup in case your mana drops and hit below 0. And then, of course, it starts eating away your life so that you just don't die instantly. But it's also there to make sure that you don't need too much like life per kill. For instance, on your gear, you can mostly focus on mana per kill when it comes to sustain. So you just don't, it's good. I would actually prefer a bit higher res, but having max res is definitely not needed on a max energy shield build. So, very rare case in hardcore where you're not focusing on res too much, as it doesn't matter when it comes to damage taken to mana. Same thing with damage percent DR. We do have 9% DR and 9 flat DR. Flat DR and flat MDR is actually more impactful for preventing damage to your life than percent when only 10% of your damage is going to your life, and also when you have some res to back it up. That is because you're taking so little damage to your life that the flat damage part of the calculation is just eating up so much of that damage that would otherwise be going to your life, and percent is by comparison not reducing as much damage anymore because there's just not much to begin with. So what is interesting is a lot of ES Sorcs, particularly Nova Sorcs, will even go an item like Gurk's Sanctuary because it has high flat fizz and flat magic, and it prevents a lot of damage from going to it. Now, of course, we're not using Gurks, we're using a staff to maintain really high, faster cast rate, and whatnot, but you can see I do actually have flat magic and flat damage reduction, and flat MDR applies to all types of magic damage, so that's really good. That's actually from our armor, so yeah, it's not bad. So we have a lot of like decent defenses for our life, and as you'll see, our HP doesn't drop often unless we get heavily poisoned. So that's the main thing you have to worry about there. Alright, 200 faster cast rate. So yeah, I definitely recommend if you can get to 200 on Charged Bolt that you should. Because Charged Bolt pierces, you really just want to fire off as many Charged Bolts as you possibly can. And since you're ranged, you don't need as high of defenses necessarily using a shield or something of that nature, particularly using the staff that we're going to be using. So we'll explain that more when we go over the gear. No hit recovery at all. That's just because we're not taking much damage to our life. To even take 12% in one go is pretty rare. So yeah, unless we end up in a really bad situation, it's not super important. That being said, hit recovery could be nice in case of a backup near-death scenario. Of course, if you're on softcore, though, you can always go way higher damage than I'm going to be showcasing here. You don't have to worry about res at all, unless, of course, you're failing to sustain your life, and then you need more like life per kill, not just mana per kill, as I mentioned earlier. And then you have to overuse potions, which is always a problem. But as you can see, we do have some HP per kill, because we will lose some HP here and there. And that prevents us from needing any kind of health potions. As you can see down here, it's just juice and mana potions. That's it. And we actually don't have to use the mana potions too commonly because we have 25 mana per kill, mostly from our staff, but also from our boots. When you can't just buy any items with any corruption, it is a little more challenging on solo self-found to get decent sustain on a sorceress, which is why we are using the items that I have found that are actually going to prove to be the most effective in this scenario. The staff is also hard carrying our magic find. But we even have Magic Find Corruption on our Griffins as well, so we have some Magic Find. If I wanted to sacrifice one skill, I could also have 40 more with Geeds, but with maps, I'll end up with pretty solid Magic Finds. So it's a pretty solid scenario here. Very fast killer. As you can see, Elemental Pierce, though, definitely a priority on your gear. Ideally, of course, if you were going for pure damage or you had all the items available to you and you were trading, you would have this number a lot higher, probably closer to 70, not 31. But 31 plus Infinity on the Mercenary is not bad. Totally a combined negative 65 lightning res, dropping all of that monster res by 65. And since Charged Bolt hits multiple times as it pierces through enemies, it will do plenty of damage. Even without even more pierce. Of course, it would be nice if we had better items available, but limitations of what we have found this season are present. I was actually waiting to make this character until so I've had this character for a while as a Lord of Destruction area farmer, but she is now a mapper, and I waited to make her a mapper until I got a Sorceress Torch, which literally took 24 torches. So the very last torch we farmed was a Sorceress Torch, and it was a good one. But I would say Sorceress needs a lot of power to look good in maps, so this is where you kind of do need at least some essential bare minimum. Threshold, once again, solo self-found, kind of difficult, but at least you can see now what like a budget, quote-unquote, Sorceress mapper looks like. They can actually do really well, and that's kind of one of the main purposes of this video here. So you can see that it's not just ultra powerful Sorcs that will tear up the game faster than any other build. Decent Sorcs will also tear it up as fast as, the I guess the stronger versions of some of the other very popular builds as well. It just isn't going to be as easy to get to as those builds, because those builds just don't require nearly as much. But anyway, so yeah, those are the basic stats, and as you can see, we put everything into energy. And the thing about putting everything into energy here is that not only do we get a huge amount of mana with the max mana, I actually have a decent amount of max mana on our items. 20% increase, 6%, could be up to 10 there, 26, 46. So there's 46% increase in max mana. And with another setup, you could even maybe use Frosties and get like 71%. Having over 2k mana is very good. That's generally kind of what you're looking for, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to really say. I mean, you could have life as low as like 600 or 700. Of course, we could also have it a lot higher. One of the issues with that, though, is getting lifer lightning GCs, which, we have two. So we've actually gotten some decent RNG on that, but that could also be a lot higher. And this is a little concerning on hardcore for your life to be that low. That's why you really got to make sure your mana doesn't hit 0. But anyway, let's go into the skills just real quick. So one in a static field. I'd really only pop this against bosses or against a problematic elite that has very high lightning resistance to the point that it's immune. Since you have Conviction, you can further lower their res. And static field works like lower res and Conviction. It can actually break immunities. So having this on top of Conviction can make your damage way higher against a boss or an elite. Having 1 point into that is pretty solid. Since I'm using a Defiance Act 2 Mercenary, a pretty basic Infinity setup on him, I'm going to have 1 point of Shiver Armor. It's going to make her defense kind of decent. Almost 5,000 defense isn't bad. And that's going to make it to where we just don't get hit by a lot of things as often. The difference between 5,000 and 0 defense is actually pretty big. And the difference between like 5,000 and 10,000 defense is arguably even larger. But at least getting a decent amount of defense does help. Of course, 1 point to Warmth, having that mana regen. I mean, one of our items is also giving us more Regenerate mana. Regenerate mana is a great stat, particularly if you have a huge mana pool. But I would, even with a smaller mana pool, Warmth is just pretty nice in general. Saves on those mana potions. You'll see our sustain is pretty good, though. We don't really need to rely too much on potions, which is definitely the ideal if you're mapping with the sorceress. And then of course, so this is where some of the differences would arise between softcore and hardcore. On softcore, I would max teleport and reduce the damage penalty from teleporting. But as you can see, as long as you're playing a lightning sorceress, you have enough soft points into the lightning skill tree to where your penalty, even with only 1 point in a teleport, is 26. That's not that bad. So you're losing about a quarter of your damage immediately after teleporting. And then if you continue firing, you know, a little bit longer after you've teleported, your damage goes back up to normal. So you'll get a little bit of the nuke damage and a little bit of the max damage, which is kind of what you want. As you can see, this is level 43 Charged Bolt, so it's not bad. I think we've achieved a pretty decent setup at this point, so this is why we're showcasing it. It'll be a little tough to achieve something better, I would say, on SSF, but you know, with just a godlier griffins, or with more lightning or better lightning facets, or godly staff, like a godly skull collector, not just one that works, or that's decent in most ways. You know, those things could definitely tip the tide to making an even better version of this. If so, I might actually show it off again, but don't really expect to. Anyway, Charge Bolt and all the synergies and max lightning mastery, definitely those have to be done. But in my case, I'm hardcore, so 1 point teleport. I'm not going to do a total max damage approach, but max energy shield. So the rest of the points, all this outstanding points, go into energy shield. Now, if you're really hardcore in this, you could actually max energy shield, and before you max it, all the synergies, and you could lower your damage a bit, and you'll be safer. Because the damage taken from mana will be even under 100%, which would be nice, but it's pretty close. So that means it's almost the same as taking damage to your life based on how much mana we have here. So that's kind of good. 90% is max in PD2 for, you know, damage directed to your mana. So that's kind of cool. One more level, we actually hit max. You'll see it's 2 every level until you get to 89, and then the next level is 90. So that shows you that's the max. So 90, we're at 89%. It's pretty close. So 11% damage right now is going to the life. That's pretty decent. You mainly want to keep maxing this, and that's what I would be doing until 97, just to reduce the amount of damage going to our mana, which would make this build even safer. So that would be nice for sure. But in general, that's how you do it. Now, Mercenary is pretty basic. It's just an Act 2 Defiance Mercenary. Defiance, the flat DR and the percent DR do help, you know, keep our life at max at most times. And the defense provided by Defiance is going to make it to where you don't get hit quite as often by any kind of melee or ranged attack, ranged physical attack, which is good. And you'll see, of course, that we got Infinity, you know, Infinity and a polearm. Doesn't really matter exactly what the polearm is. I would definitely recommend a faster polearm, though, if you don't have any attack speed whatsoever on your gear, though. But as you'll see here, it's not super important what exactly, you know, you have in these in whatsoever. So make sure your Mercenary has good res, good defense. I have a Sigurd Staunch on him, so with this plus all the rest of the defense and the fact he has Defiance Aura, makes his defense really high. You could make his defense closer to 30k if you have really high defense items. But this is a damage reduction, enhanced damage, rare. You can make crafts, safety crafts like this as well. This is a brick we actually did. I think I featured this brick on my channel this season. That was a really sick brick. Mercenary is using that, makes his damage and his damage reduction really good. He's got damage reduction here. This is just one of my mini vamp gazes. I have a lot of them. This is probably my crappiest one, but he has so much defense and he has other DR anyway that he'll survive no matter what with it, so it's fine. And this just helps him deal even more damage. So he's kind of a support that does a lot of damage, and that's good for like killing lightning immunes and things like that. You know, he's got good attack speed, but he also has really high survivability and has high damage. And yeah, he's very tough to kill. 42% DR on the Mercenary, plus, 6,000 max damage, and also has, like, if I had attack speed res jewels, I would use those for sure. Definitely could have better jewels for increasing his damage and things of that nature. These jewels actually are enhanced damage jewels instead of attack speed enhanced damage jewels. I could theoretically, like, optimize them a bit more, but and I have some jewels that might be able to help with that a little bit, but then he'd lose some other stats, so it's not super important, honestly, but he's just very strong, and he's very good. He's my protector, so he does take a lot of damage for me as I'm teleporting, so it's very nice. Want to make sure he doesn't die, because if he dies, I might go down next. So it's very, very important to realize. And if I go down on hardcore, she is done. Anyway, so gear. So let's talk about the first thing. So I would say in a solo self-found scenario, particularly on hardcore, I would say a hardcore SSF scenario, this is probably your best staff. Ming Song's lesson could be used, but the thing is like, this staff solves a lot of problems that I guess you wouldn't encounter necessarily on not SSF. See, if you're on trade, there's a lot more options for mana per kill corruptions and customizing where you get your sustain, so that 20 mana per kill wouldn't be as necessary. The other thing is the maximum mana on the staff itself, which is just really good for tankiness. 3 skills isn't bad, and a very high faster cast rate max when you upgrade a Skull Collector to an Archon staff. Keep in mind that elite staves just have a natural higher faster cast rate than exceptional and normal staves. So it's 50, 30, 10. The base FCR on Skull Collector is 30, plus the base on the staff of an Archon staff is 50. So upgrading that is very important. The other thing to know is we have 3 lightning facets in here. As you can see, our lightning facets haven't really been insane. I mean, I've also used them for some other things while I was farming Arcane previously throughout my journey here. So I don't really have the best lightning facets, but I have lightning facets. And as you can probably see, this is a puzzle box, not a corruption. Unfortunately, got poison pierce. If that was lightning pierce instead, this would have been an insane staff, even with a 3-socket puzzle box, which is not 4. 4 would be max. But I mean, that'd be the equivalent basically of a 5-socket at that point with really high stats. So that would have been nice, but unfortunately that corruption ended up being worthless. But it's one of the only Skull Collectors I have that didn't brick, 1, and then 2, it got 3 skills, and it got 20 mana per kill. And so I was like, alright, let's puzzle box it, let's see if we can put it to work. And sure enough, it does its job just fine. But interesting to note is you could get way more lightning pierce if you have a 6-socketed one from a corruption, or a 4-socketed one with lightning pierce, or a 4-socketed one with a skill. That would all be obviously a lot better. But another thing that's interesting to note, though, is the 3% chance to cast the bone armor in casting is pretty huge for increasing your survivability. I would recommend that this is used on like 90% of like Sorc mappers on hardcore, just because if you're going to go a full energy shield mapping sorceress, you have to max your mana, right? Or your energy. So anyone that knows anything about the Necromancer knows that energy also applies to bone armor. So it also makes the bone armor stronger. So I wonder if I could teleport around here a bit just to show you guys how much bone armor we get. Let's see. Cast it! It's on casting, so if I cast enough abilities, supposedly we will get the bone armor to cast. Wow, damn. Okay, there we go, there we go. That was pretty unlucky, honestly. 1712, that is what that says down there. So 1712 bone armor. Not only is it level 25 base, which increases its base, all that energy is also making the bone armor that we get insane. This means we can take insane amounts of physical damage even before the damage hits our mana. Honestly, the most dangerous thing for this character is elemental damage, because it won't take nearly as much to wipe out your mana, And remember, if this is all your reses on backup at 940 health, that could be gone very quickly. This is why you got to make sure you always have a, I would say above at least 1,000 mana or 1,500 at all times, which is why when you use your potions, it's very important, because elemental damage could definitely crush you. And this is another reason why I'm not going to do any maps of souls ever on this character, because souls also drain mana and their elemental damage is so high that I will die very quickly against this. So this character is definitely hard countered by black souls or gloams or anything of that nature. So do keep that in mind if you want to play a build similar to this. That will definitely mess you up bad. Anyway, so yeah, that bone armor is crazy. We are highly resistant against physical damage. Not only do we have the bone armor before we even take any damage at all, then ES is just really good against physical damage in general. So we don't really have to worry about ultra powerful archers all that much, as long as we clean them up quickly, telestomp them, and get rid of them. Anything like that, this character actually counters pretty well, and you would think it wouldn't, even without a shield and all that, and even without DR, but it does. And so that's a very interesting point. Anyway, I talked a lot about this weapon, but this weapon's pretty solid. I haven't even found a Ming Song's lesson, but a decent skull collector will do. Really good job. We've only found 2 griffins. One of them got an even crappier corruption than this. This one, though, not bad. It got a pretty base good roll. It got the MF. I don't even remember if I puzzled this or just one-socketed it at the time, because I didn't have a puzzle box, but I haven't found too many griffins, period, so I haven't really had a chance to upgrade this, but it's possible to get a better one. You can still see we are, I don't even have that many light facets to use, but even if I did, I want to make sure my res isn't too bad, right? Because just in case the mana wipes out faster than I can react. And make sure that when all the damage starts going to life, when there's no more mana to protect me, we're still good. One thing to note, though, is your energy shield no longer wipes out instantly when your mana hits 0 and you receive additional damage. So as long as you use a Juve or whatever, your ES will be 100% functional again once you have mana again. But we have gotten some very good corruptions that we're actually going to use on this build here, so this is kind of cool. A 3-skill Tal Rashazami. So this is like one of, I think, only 2 Tal Rashazamis I've even found, and we got a skill corruption on it. I also have a 3 lightning 10 faster caster Ami that I could also use. I think this one, though, is going to take the cake, though, because it gives you a decent amount of life and gives you decent mana, and it also gives you decent light res. So all in all, pretty good. And then it's 3 skills. So that's a lot of good defensive stats plus offensive stats. So I'm going to take that. And we don't have any 4-skill Amis. I've actually tried to make several of them, and I've failed. Like, out of like 100 Amis, I think I made 0 4-skill Amis. It's pretty tough, and I just didn't get very lucky on this. Now this I got very lucky on. So we found a Viper Magi. I did get a skill corruption on it, and I puzzled it for 2. This is one of probably the best caster items, if not the best caster item I've made this hardcore solo self-found journey. And we gave it a life per kill jewel, which is pretty cool. And we also have a rune in there. So it's my only life per kill source, but because I don't lose too much life, 3 life per kill will sustain me 100%. And then obviously the res, just boosting the res higher. All res Mage Fist. I wish I had an FCR Mage Fist, because that would have actually helped out with some things here, but that's the best we got. I don't have any 30 FCR gloves or even 30 attack speed gloves, so once again, gotta use what you can use, and this is not bad. This is not bad. We need a lot of it. You know, you can definitely see we need a lot of FCR to hit 200 here, and that's kind of one of the main goals here. For sure. Of course, we also need cannot be frozen somewhere, and because we don't have infinite Cham runes, and I've used Chams to make a Zod already previously, and you know I don't have access to, like, maybe I would have put a Cham here instead, but honestly, faster cast rate Ravenfrost is a pretty good corruption because it has mana. So it's a ring that has mana, faster cast rate, and cannot be frozen. It's the only ring where you can get faster cast rate and cannot be frozen still, because cannot be frozen is no longer a corruption on rings. So that's actually quite useful. And you know, it gets us closer to that 200% cast rate we need, and it's got mana. And it's good. This is just going to be best in slot in general. Combined with Griffins with a 25 FCR here, we would need at least a 15 faster cast rate Iraq. This is the only Iraq I've found with higher than 15, which is interesting. I found like 3 other ones with like 10, 11, and 11, so and it rolled strength, so not bad. You know, it helps with wearing the upgraded Viper Magi a bit for that extra defense bonus from the Defiance and the Shiver armor. And it has maximum mana and a skill, so I mean, that's going to be really good. And you guys may have seen this ring already when I showed her off, I think, for the arcane farming video, I think it was. I don't remember 100% maybe, but yeah, this definitely still using this ring. This ring is this ring would be worth a lot in trade. Not even talking about solo self-found. I mean, this ring's pretty nuts. It just gives like an incredible amount of valuable stats here. Just a huge amount of mana, very useful. And then Silk Weave's reduced curse duration with 20% max mana. So we have other Silk Weaves with a lot less max mana. One has like some max fire res. It's not super good. I would say this is probably our best one. It would have been nice to have like an 8 mana per kill Silk Weaves, but you know, once again, beggars can't be choosers. But you know, that stat isn't bad though. Reduced curse duration is not bad. Getting amped is probably one of the worst ways you can get wrecked for sure. A decrep slowing down your cast speed, definitely not fun stuff. So I would say this is pretty solid. Maximum mana, you know, mana per kill, definitely themes. Lots of mana, faster cast rate. Do need CBF somewhere. Yeah, this thing's insane. Plus skills, and obviously Griffins with all of its Lightning Pierce and FCR are going to be very important. And Skull Collector. Of course, down here we got that Sorcerer's Torch, the one and only Sorc Torch, and man, it's a good one, so that's good. And then we have an Annie, which is kind of decent. And then we have, we've definitely killed Declone a number of times on the Summon Druid. And then you'll see, of course, we have some Lightning GCs, 2 Lifers, and we have Life, Res, and we have Mana and Life. Mana, Life, Small Charms, which these kinds of charms here are very good on an ES build, because you're doubling up on both of your main defensive stats, because Energy Shield is so important. I would say that, honestly, like an ES Sorc is probably the only build where you really want Life Mana Charms instead of like Life Res Charms. But notice, though, another interesting theme here is Res in general, just to kind of pump it up a bit more, but also Poison Res, and you'll see that here on some of my backup charms, particularly against maps where the monsters are doing bonus poison damage, which I don't even recommend doing that stat. So where they're doing where they have poison damage, physical damage conversion, because that can kill you when you have low HP. Too much poison damage will kill you very, very, very fast. And so I don't recommend, that's like one stat that's like a big avoid on this build. If you get that on a map, is the poison damage conversion stat. But another thing to note is some bosses just do a lot of poison damage as well. So definitely consider getting max poison resistance, particularly if you're going to run those poison damage maps or you're scared against certain monsters that do tons of poison damage. Replacing maybe Life, Mana, Small Charms or something can definitely be very helpful. Now, the reason why is something else a lot of people don't know about Energy Shield is that while most damage directs to mana, there is one kind of damage that never directs to mana under any circumstance, which is poison damage. It always hits your life. So be very careful about too much poison damage. The one resistance, if you're really going to care about it, is definitely poison. So make sure that doesn't catch you by surprise and kill you. Anyway, as you can see though, very cool that we have a set of 9 lightning skillers on solo self-found. We did a lot of charm rerolling for this. Some of them were 79s as well, you can see from Arcane. This actually I think was from Nightmare. I think I found this from like Cows or something. And then yeah, you can see this is a 93 reroll right here. So you got some pretty decent ones, and the fact that we have 9 of them is good. One thing about Sorceress is you definitely need a lot of power to feel strong in maps. And this is where, you know, having a better skull collector, or, you know, maybe like more lightning facets could really help out quite a bit. But despite the fact that we are lacking a little bit on that power, as long as we have the sustain and we have the other good items and defensive stats and whatnot, we're still doing pretty good. So let's get into it. Let's show off what she is capable of here. Yeah, this one doesn't have any poison damage. This one should be fine. This one has a little bit of maximum life, so the monster's gonna be a little tankier, but we're gonna show her off in this map anyway. Oh wow. Okay, well that's one thing that's annoying. Starting off. Alright, we got a bit of a false start there. Yeah, that's something to be wary of actually. Because we don't have any hit recovery, certain monsters do stun, which is something I didn't even mention. That stun effect will actually be based on your hit recovery. So yeah, that's really bad, and that's another reason why like something like a negative FHR map might be very devastating as well. Just keep that in mind. And the stun bypasses the need, for instance, to do a certain amount of damage to you to put you in FHR. And this is another reason maybe not to have 0 FHR, but, you know, as you can see, it's not gonna matter too much. Worst case scenario, though, is you get stun locked, and then you might have to save and exit those, so be very careful. But if you go up close to the monsters like this, and you just, you know, just railroad them, just don't jump all the way in like I did in the beginning there on accident. You'll be doing pretty good. But you'll notice here that, you know, that 3 LPK is doing work. Ooh, wow, an ohm. Look at that. I always like finding cool items when I make my videos here. LPK is really good because it always will sustain you as well, even if you're undergoing like a little bit of poison damage as well. But you're noticing I don't even need to use the mana pots really, and mana pots are, you know, you can just buy them from the vendor. Right now my filter isn't showing mana pots, but you could also have that be a thing too. You're noticing as well that I can take an assload of physical damage. And, you know, that's not just the ES, that's also the fucking, bone armor as well. And you can see that 3% of every cast that I do, of any kind, including teleport, will regenerate it. Oh, that's interesting. Now you'll notice that, you know, my lightning res there, you can really see how that's affecting how much damage I can take. It's at 61, and it bypasses the mana a bit there because there's still 11% of the damage going to the life, and lightning does so much damage. That's what I mean by Gloam's like hard counter this build. Even the lightning spires are hurting quite a bit. You know, we got CBF, we're good. You can see in general though that the Charged Bolt just shreds really smoothly, really easily. I would say on a lot of maps you could even just run full juves, but you don't have to. Just having a mana potion sometimes to like increase your mana regen while you're also getting all that mana per kill works really well on an ES Sorc, which is something I never show off in closed beta because it's always easier just to create more juves on closed beta, right? Yeah, see, look at that lightning spire. Ow, dude. I have to heal the Mercenary before I need to heal me. Yeah, I mean... yeah, I really like CB though this season. I mean, being able to pierce is amazing. And you can notice that just 3 LPK is doing some big work here. Right, you know, I'm taking a little bit of elemental damage to my life here and there. But it doesn't really matter all that much because I'm killing so many monsters. It always feels good, like 105 SCR bow. It's like amazing. So fast to rebow. Obviously I have 200 on my main hand, but not. Now I can't kill every light immune, but you see how fast my Merc killed it? That's why having a lot of damage on your Mercenary is nice. So going like a Fortitude or a equivalent of a Fortitude on a Safety or a Rare Armor, you know? It's gonna be good. Just having a high damage Infinity. Attack speed would be even better too. It's kind of lacking a bit of attack speed on the Mercenary. It would be nice. But yeah. You can see though in the beginning though, getting stunned can be pretty dangerous for sure. Stuns are nasty. Certain monsters like these Yetis do stuns. Snakes also have like knockback kind of works the same way, so like snakes could be very bad. So make sure you have more faster hit recovery or something if you're actually going to be actively jumping into monsters like that. One thing you don't have to worry about too much though is your resistance is the vast majority of the time, as you can see. It could just be lower res, you know, I already have shit res, but I mean it does affect you though against things like lightning spires though, and you can see though that it's important that your res isn't too low because things like cold lightning enchant, like cold lightning fire could kill you pretty fast if you're not aware of it. That's why having some res, even though most of the damage is not being routed to your HP, is kind of nice. Alright, so as you can see there, still taking a lot of damage to my life, but not too much. My HP ever drops below like 650, I'm gonna juve. I don't care what the reason is. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking to have such low actual HP, because the only thing that matters when it comes to you dying, you know, is your HP reaches 0. It's the only thing that matters. Right? Even if I have all this damage mitigation or damage redirect on this character to mana, it doesn't matter. You can see on a tier 1 map though, I mean, she's fucking shredding, you know? And, you know, we could have a lot more damage too, that's the thing. And you could see the really powerful version of this character from an offensive standpoint. I mean, you can't see the corruptions or anything that are possible in the closed beta build either. But then you know that if you had, like, the perfect gear and the perfect corruptions, like, this is definitely an insane build this season. You see, most of the time I can kind of just jump into things as long as I don't get stunned. It's pretty brutal. I mean, it's kind of like Nova, but thing about this skill is, unlike Nova, you don't have to jump directly into the monsters as well, so you have a... I guess you could say you have that flexibility. You have that flexibility. Like you could see here, you know, I could sit here and cast it for a while if I want. Which is good because, you know, if I wait like over a second, my damage returns back to normal after teleporting, so. But you can see that map got cleaned up fast, right? Pretty bonkers character for solo self-found on hardcore. It's an elemental one, but you can see that it takes a bit longer to get the strong elemental builds going on SSF. Because the biggest challenges are on SSF just in general are going to be, you know, things like skill GCs, getting the exact torch maybe, and then also the very big challenge is getting facets. You're not even going to get the best facets either in a lot of cases, but just getting them. Obviously, we've done the facet map a few times, which has helped. Travancole's amazing for facets. You know, Arcane, if it's corrupted, also really good for facets. However, the best farming spot for facets, if you're an SSF player, is Indariel, by far. I have found countless facets when I just farmed Annie, and I didn't even farm her for forever, honestly. You can get a lot of good facets doing that, so make sure to always be aware on SSF where your target farms are for those challenge items, like, you know, skillers and good small charms. It's going to be Arcane. It's going to be getting those high-level GCs 91, 90 plus in maps, and then re-rolling them with P-gems that you can power from in Arcane, or like cow maps, for instance. Cow maps are good for power farming P-gems, and also GCs in general. So just keep all those things in mind, you know. And of course, unfortunately, you just gotta sometimes power farm keys and do that. We finally did Uber runs though, and we finally got our Sork and Barb torch. So I'm gonna be making a Barb soon too. We're gonna show off some Barb builds and show off hopefully a Wrath may kill on a Barb, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. No promises with that. We did find an Outer Void map. That's pretty rare. That's cool. And a Demon Machine. Addition to that Omerin. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty cool though. Anyway, let's show off some other maps though after I clear these. So we got negative requirements. Okay. Cool. Still looking for better bolts, maybe for my DM machine Amazon I have now, as you may have seen. Alright, and then where did I put my other maps at? Oh, did I just put them back in here on accident? No. Oh, they're right here. Okay, so we're gonna go tier 2 now. Tier 2, this one also has some max life, but this one only has 5%. The main worry about Ancestral Trial, though, is that it has a lot of elemental damage, 1, so it can definitely be a little dangerous, but also 2, there's a lot of poison damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I'm going to optimize for that a bit here. So we are going to get more poison res. And so now we have 75 poison res. This doesn't have any negative res on the map, so we're set to go. So, cool. And notice that I don't even need the mana potion showing still on the filter, because I only used one that whole map. You can just refill the next map. I mean, if you have to use them here and there, it can be useful. Alright, so poison res is 75. These spiders do a massive amount of poison damage, and so do the zombies, so. Ancestral Trial also, though, no light immunes, so really good to run. One thing to note is before your bone armor casts, you might want to be extra, I guess, vigilant about taking damage. But I mean, you still have all that mana for them to burn through. As you saw when I got stunned in the beginning of the, it's not going to be like a death sentence per se. And, you know, they're not going to be able to put you in any kind of hit recovery when you have bone armor, so... Yeah, you can see here that even with max poison res, we are taking on water fast when it comes to poison damage. Good news, though, is we do have a 3 LPK to not make it to her constantly. Honestly, antidotes might be nice here, too. I'm kind of too lazy to get them, though. Alright. Forgot, that is not a juve, that is a mana potion. Careful. I don't normally run those. That's, not a lot of builds need mana potions on the 3rd slot. So, if we die during the video, though, that'd be pretty tragic, considering it, you know, I should know better. Note, though, you know, as long as you don't get, like, bitten by a spider or a zombie for the most part, this is pretty easy. But even if you do, you won't die too fast, because I have poison res, so... You should got poison res with energy shield, because, yeah, that... And even if you do, honestly, I kind of don't recommend, I don't recommend the, whole... poison damage, physical damage conversion map stat. It's gonna be potentially deadly. You would think with only 10% of your damage going to your life that wouldn't be the case, but well, you may be mistaken though. I mean, it is important sometimes to be aware of like how low your bone armor is too, in case you want to tank extra large amounts of physical damage. If you don't want to, then that could be bad. I mean, archers could still kill you even with so much of that damage being directed there. As you can see though, damage is very good even in the tier 2s, despite not having anywhere near what I would consider to be max damage on this build. Yeah, definitely like big criticism I often get on my sorceress videos, closed beta, is that they're unrealistic builds. And for a lot of players they might be. I think that is a fair criticism. That's annoying. They can stun you even if they're not doing any damage. See, that's unlike hit recovery, you know? That's crazy. I'll let the Mercenary kill that elite real quick. Yeah. Stun goes through you even if, see, hit recovery requires 12% or higher of your HP to be taken in a hit, but stun does not. Stun only requires them to make a successful hit on you, I suppose. Accounting for your defense and their AR, whatever the monster's AR is, so. Unfortunate. But yeah, as you can see, we've made some really powerful builds on our SSF this season. I really have grown to love SSF, like, it's so cool. It can take a while to make, particularly certain builds, like elemental builds that require a lot of things that take some really crazy power farms without trading. But it can be very rewarding though, so. I got Geed, okay. I almost got bitten by a spider because looks like the spider missed though because of my defense. Yeah, let's see. Not a bone mage. Let me attack this thing. Okay, 47%. Yeah, and it would be closer to 90% without Defiance and Shiver Armor and upgraded Vipers. So yeah, see how my mana dipped kind of low there? I'll use a mana potion. really don't want that mana to dip very low, because if it does, that is how you can die. Your mana hits 0 and you take a lot of elemental damage, particularly. Physical damage might not kill you because you still have the bone armor. But yeah, it's dangerous stuff. Let's see. Oh man. Arcane's Valor maybe? Oh, we don't even have the gold right now. Given that I already have like a perfect Arcanes and a perfect Scolders, you know what? I'm actually gonna pass on that. I have 3 sockets on a Scolders and I have 3 sockets on an Arcane 2 skill. Yeah, that's the only thing that can roll, so. You can also use Static Field, you know, as you saw, I think with the boss over in, you know, Horizon's Memory, I did use the Static Field, as you might remember me talking about briefly. I've also attempted to use it against some things. I'm not sure if, yeah, Minions of Destruction is an interesting guess mod. It's, oh, that's a dangerous one right there. I think it almost all goes to her mana. Oh man, they're crazy. But yeah, I mean, now this boss does a really high amount of elemental damage, so you do kind of have to watch that a little bit. Mana cannot hit 0. Otherwise, we are defending with 28 cold res, which, if you've ever been mapping with low res, you'll know, death comes quickly, particularly against that boss's attack, so. Particularly against Blizzard and Ice Bolt. So you don't want to have that happen. Gotta say, great change for Charged Bolt to Pierce. I hope they fix the Uber Mephisto damage, though. That's a little insane. Oh, that's kind of cool. As you can see, though, one thing that's kind of hurting our damage quite a bit is the fact that immediately after we teleport, there is that penalty. But like I said, the penalty isn't that big of a deal for lightning builds, because lightning builds get to lower it quite a bit. They do, they do, they do. Okay. Yeah, looks like we're nearing the end of the map here. 200 faster cast rate, teleport, Charged Bolt spam, teleport, Charged Bolt spam. Now note that if our damage is even higher, we could be moving even faster and killing faster, and that's where the S potential, the S designation comes from on the tier list, so you could be way faster in this, but this is pretty good. The fact that I was able to make this on SSF Hardcore is pretty solid, actually. Definitely. Oh wow. Both decrep and stun. I actually got stuck there for a second. Yeah, decrep will lower your cast speed too. I don't know. Terrible. Let's clear out all the monsters so I don't get stunned again. Come on, go away. There we go. As you can see, Charged Bolt, you know, really shreds bosses, and even have that 1-point static field to make it even more insane. They don't really survive very long, so that is very nice, obviously. Very nice bonus. Alright. Alright, cool. There's a thing there. Okay. Looks like my bow's about to go out. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. Get hit by a spider and my bow's out. Luckily it's a wall. Alright, sweet. But anyway. Fun! Absolute meltation, right? So this should inspire more people to make Sorc mappers, right? It's not something that's too out of I guess you could say out of range budget-wise for a lot of people, even on trade mode. I mean, this is, I didn't use a budget for this, I just found these, so you could definitely do it on trade. 100%. Let's show off a little bit of a tier 3 as well. Ruined Cistern. Cistern is pretty good. Really avoid getting stunned by gore bellies though. That could be very dangerous. Once again, particularly with her hit recovery. So yeah, her hit recovery being 0 is just that's probably the most dangerous thing about this particular setup. You could get hit recovery just by having 12 FHR GCs though, having FHR down here and the charms. Or just being a little bit stubborn about it. I'm trying to think, is the poison damage a real issue in that other map? Not so much, I would say. Unless we do that. We're not going to do the boss. The boss, actually, half of its damage is poison. That's pretty dangerous, actually, for an ES Sorc. I personally, I've heard of definitely a lot of horror stories about dying to this boss on a ES Sorc. So we're not going to be fucking with that, really. Oh, I forgot to, get my, mana potions back. Could just buy them again at the shop. Okay, so yeah, let's go back and do that real quick.
Good afternoon.
And you can see tier 3s actually with this amount of damage start to fall off a bit for sure. But wait, there's lightning immunes in here? Oh, that's what's going on. Maybe there's a better map to demo actually. I don't remember there being lightning immunes in here. Yeah, I don't know. You can see though, our damage is definitely there though. Let's see if I can find a, I didn't realize this demo would be so crap, honestly. Is there lightning immunes? Oh, that's right, it used to not have lightning immune. What was I thinking? Oh, you know what? They must have added them. Oh. I might have to fix it, actually. Still has the old immunities on there for some reason. Let me go do a different map then. Now, Canyon would be pretty good. Canyon's very dangerous, though. Like, there's 2 stun monsters. I'd probably have to change my setup a bit to do that safely. I guess we could do... Let's see. Yeah, which one would actually make the most sense here? Which one would make the most sense? I mean, Bastion Keep is a great tier 2. Yeah, my build, it's even arguable that my build isn't actually well tailored to yeah, it's not super well tailored, I would say, to tier 3s in general. Like, I guess I could do Fledgathon, right? Because Fledgathon, yeah, Fledgathon's actually a pretty good example of a map on this character. Because even if it has a lightning immune, those are just the shamans, so it's not like a huge deal. I guess I'll make a map real quick here. That's actually fine. It does have some maximum damage, I suppose. Yeah, it's okay. So Fledgathon's actually pretty good for lightning builds. Oh, fuck. Right in the middle, bro. One problem with council members is that council members... Damn, that thing is crazy. Yeah, so, you know, it's like I said, like, this build isn't tailored towards tier 3s the best, just because I don't have enough FHR and things like that. But that is a bit of a limitation of solo self-found, right? To get the S rank, the Charged Bolt Sorceress was actually tested on tier 3s. So, yeah, clearly we could, you know, but it's gonna take some, See, though, Charger Zombies, this character might fear them the least, honestly. You know, we got high ES, we got all this bone armor. And, surprisingly... But that's another thing about Sorceress mapping in general. If you want to balance both defensive and offensive stats, you can argue that Sorceresses probably have the biggest problem, like, transitioning to tier 3s as well. And you need, like, really good gear to do it consistently. But yeah, I mean, you can see, we can still crush a map, right? We can still crush tier 3s, it's just... it's a little tougher. All the shamans being immune to lightning, it's a little annoying. Yeah. Being killed by Bale doesn't sound good. Yeah, this boss also very high elemental damage. Definitely gotta watch your mana against that one if you fight this boss. But at least it's not poison though. I didn't realize Ruined Cistern had the wrong immunities on it. Yeah, look at that. Mana got really low there because in this map they got elemental damage, not just physical damage on their projectiles. Watch that, because you can die very fast once it hits 0. That's why you got juice. That's how you pick up juice. Oh man. It's not... So you would think, wait, how is the physical damage getting through the bone armor? It's not. It's actually that physical elemental damage conversion on the map. So all the monsters in this map are doing elemental damage in addition to the physical damage, which is draining our mana. Which is why I'm using mana potions. If it gets really bad in some of these maps, I'd probably, you know, recommend keeping the mana potions on so you can pick up mana potions here and there. As you can notice, see, like, we're out of mana potions now, for instance. You could avoid, like, most types of elemental damage conversion, or at least dual conversion. I don't remember, is this map single LE conversion or dual conversion? It might be dual conversion, because it looks like it's hitting me pretty hard. You can even get a tri-conversion map, which probably would want to recommend not doing on this, but I mean, I don't know. See, there's static field, clearing an immunity. Right. Yeah, you're thinking, wait, we have bone armor. How are they still damaging our mana? It's like, well, it's because all that elemental damage. It's brutal. Anyway, I think you guys get the idea, though. Showing off a decent amount of this and whatnot. Let's see. Yeah, this video is over an hour. Wow. Yeah, let me see what the map stats were. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, fire and cold damage, physical damage conversion. Yeah. So that's actually something to be very aware of. And remember how I said the poison conversion is bad because that's all going to go directly to your HP? Well, that might be fatal. These other ones aren't good either because this means that, once again, ES is weakest against elemental damage. You have enough of those physical damage conversions and, that can put you in the red zone in your mana a lot more frequently, particularly if you have more than one. I would say like one fire, one cold, or one lightning probably won't do the trick. But if you have two or more, it starts to get a little dicier, as you can see there, particularly with, you know, maximum life on the monsters as well. And increased cast and attack speed as well. Pretty dangerous map there. But you could show that even in a, you could see there that even in a dangerous map scenario, my Silacel hardcore sort is still functional, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, you could just see, and with even more damage and otherwise, you know, you're pretty safe. You're even pretty safe in cows as long as they don't have LE conversion once again, because of all your resistance to physical damage. You just have to make sure not to jump into a really dangerous pack, right? If you ever end up in hit recovery, you're toast, so you got to make sure to maintain that. But as you can see, this is a functional SSF hardcore sorceress that is capable of doing every map that is decent. I just realized that one of my maps, even on my loot filter, is actually coded wrong, so that's interesting. I'll make sure to fix that after this video. Well, Ruined Cistern used to be the lightning map, so that makes sense, actually. It doesn't surprise me. But anyway, GG guys, let me know what you guys think about this build below. Does this look like a very strong, realistic mapping sorceress that doesn't require too much? You know, pretty basic griffins. It's basically a one-socketed griffins from the standpoint of, like, offensive or defensive stats. You know, three-socketed skull collector. Yeah, this is pretty solid. Like, that's a really good item. But I mean, you could definitely have way stronger items, and as you can see, like, something like this is still functional and very powerful. It does take a bit, though. It does take a bit. It's not easy to make a sorc that feels good in maps, so it's really cool to show off my favorite build this season, the Charged Bolt Sorc, and to have been able to acquire these items. But anyway, let me know what you guys think below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Dark Humility over and out. Let's get it.